This video is sponsored by Skillshare. More on that later in the video. Today I'm going to show you how to make easy sourdough baguettes. They're awesome. Hi, I'm Sune and I'm a food geek. Today I'm going to show you how to make easy sourdough baguettes. What makes them easy? Well, the hydration is pretty low, which also means that you probably won't get a super open crumb, but they'll still be great, I promise you. Also, to get the maximum level of gluten development with the least amount of work, I'm working the dough in a stand mixer. If you're already crushing making sourdough bread, the thing that makes baguettes hard is learning a whole new way of shaping. It's quite different from batards, and it's miles away from boules. But don't worry, I'll show you how it's done. The other thing that makes it easier is that I'm using a special pan for baguettes instead of using a couche. You may of course still use a couche if you want, but especially loading baguettes into the oven requires quite a lot of practice. Using the pan, you can basically just put the shaped baguettes directly in the oven after retarding. I left a link in the description for this kind of pan that I'm using. This is an affiliate link, so if you want to buy it, I will get a small percentage of the sale. Skillshare offers thousands of inspiring classes for creative and curious people on topics including illustration, design, photography, video, freelancing, and more. When I first started out here on YouTube, I had never recorded videos, so didn't really know how to get started. So I joined Skillshare as a member and found some great classes about how to record professional looking video. I also found this great class called How to Talk and Present to the Camera Like a Pro by fellow YouTuber Draw with Jazza that helped my presentation skills. I'm a lifelong learner and my creative output is my motivation. Since you watch my channel, I think you may be described this way as well. The first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the description will get a free trial of premium membership so you can explore your creativity. It's curated specifically for learning, meaning there are no ads, and they're always launching new premium classes so you can stay focused and follow wherever your creativity takes you. And it's less than $10 a month with an annual subscription. I'd like to thank Skillshare for sponsoring this video. For these baguettes, I'm only using bread flour, which is a classic French baguette. You can also put some whole grain in, 20% without a problem. More than that, you'll have to experiment. The hydration is 70%, but I recommend you start out at 65% in case your bread flour isn't very absorbent. It's easier to add more water afterwards. The inoculation is 22.2% and the salt content is 2.2%. You may wonder why these odd numbers. Well, it's because you can divide the recipe by 3 for one baguette and all the numbers will still be nice and whole. Nifty, ain't it? If you'd like to support the channel, please consider becoming a member at Patreon. You can also buy some merch or use the links in the description for tools and ingredients. Those were the words. This is the recipe. The written recipe is linked in the description down below the video. You may have to press the show more button or equivalent to see it. To the bowl of your stand mixer, add 675 grams of bread flour, 15 grams of salt. Mix with the paddle attachment on one until it's been incorporated. Then add 150 grams of sourdough starter, fed and grown to its peak. $450 grams of water. If you don't know the strength of your flour, you might want to start out with 400 grams of water and then gauge it while it's mixing, adding as much water as needed. Mix with the paddle on one until everything has been incorporated. Then switch to the dough hook and mix on 3 for 5 minutes. Check for a window pane by pulling a little piece of dough out and see if it's strong enough to pull the dough so thin that you can see light through it. If it fails, mix in increments of 2 minutes until it passes the test. This first window pane is pretty bad. The dough basically just falls apart. Instead of using a stand mixer, you can also knead the dough by hand until you get a window pane. It'll probably take 10 to 15 minutes. The second window pane is not much better than the first. Still not very much strength. The dough is now starting to show some strength, but it's not good enough yet. Ah, perfect. Look at how far and how thin I can pull this dough. This is great. Then move the dough to a see-through bulking container. Wet your hands and level the dough. And mark the top of the dough with a whiteboard marker. Then let the dough grow by 25 to 50%. This is how my dough looked after the fermentation. Then divide the dough into 3 equally sized pieces. Dust the top with flour. Flip the dough over and roll it up into a tight log. Do the same for the other 2. Then let them rest on the counter for 20 minutes and then proceed to the final shaping. Grab a log, stretch it out to double the length you want your baguette to be. Then fold the right side into the middle, and then fold the left side into the middle. Then going all the way down the length of the baguette, fold the back towards the front to about the middle of the dough. Then flip it around. Then go all the way down the baguette again, folding from the back towards the front, all the way over this time. Then work the baguette across the table, pushing it forwards or backwards at the bottom of the dough to work the baguette to the exact length that you want it. Then flour the pan with rice flour and add the baguette to the pan. You can also use a piece of parchment paper on the pan if you feel like the dough is a bit too wet. Continue with the other two the exact same way. Then sprinkle rice flour on top of all the baguettes and add them to a bag big enough to hold the entire pan. Put the dough in the fridge for at least 8 hours, but up to 48 hours. When you want to bake, heat your oven to 230 degrees Celsius, 450 degrees Fahrenheit. I didn't use fan assist or convection, but you can. Add a pan to the bottom of the oven that will be used for steaming. I have a baking steel in my oven, which means I heat for an hour. If you don't use one, you can just bake when the oven says it's hot enough. When the oven's hot, boil a kettle of water. Then grab the baguette pan from the fridge. Sprinkle the top of the baguettes with rice flour. Score the baguettes with 3 long, slightly overlapping scores. Grab the pan and add it to the hot oven. Pour the kettle of boiling water into the pan at the bottom and quickly close the oven. Bake for 8 minutes. Then open the oven and remove the steaming pan. Bake for about 25 to 30 minutes more until the baguette is golden brown and super crisp. Remove the pan from the oven. Put the baguettes on a wire rack and let them cool down, or you can just serve them immediately. Let's look at these baguettes up close and personal.
So, how about that? Aren't they gorgeous? They're super tasty too and go well with almost anything. I can recommend making a Vietnamese banh mi using these baguettes. I just love them. I hope you learned something today. See you next time.